Hola, my name is Ana Vasquez, and I'm a proud indigenous Central American woman, from El Salvador to be precise. I would have loved to greet you in my indigenous language, but colonization deprived me of that. I welcome you to this important event to celebrate and commemorate International Workers' Day. I grew up in a country in the midst of a war and liberation movement. Since I was little, I learned about the importance of workers' struggles in my country and around the world. I learned about the martyrs of Chicago and International Workers' Day. When I moved here, I was shocked to find out that not only that few people here know about it, but also that the US does not join the rest of the world to celebrate May Day. For many of us, struggles like the martyrs of Chicago and struggles in countries like Cuba and Nicaragua inspired us even in the dark days of dictatorships backed by the US. As an educator, I believe that learning about these struggles in the world is crucial because so many of the demands of the past are still issues. We continue to fight to this day, both here in the US and oppressed countries around the world who suffer under US imperialism. The lessons from the past guide us into ensuring a better world for all workers. The forced migration of hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans to the US helped start the revival of a fighting workers' movement in the US. There were almost no May Day marches until immigrant workers brought them back with massive marches in 2006. We're currently living under a system that is intentionally failing working people and communities of color. COVID-19 has exposed the fact that this system does not work for us. We need to fight for a new system based on people's needs, not the profits of the rich. We can see a glimpse of that in Cuba. While the US is in chaos internally with more COVID-19 deaths than any other country, the government is threatening war against Venezuela and Iran. On the contrary, Cuba is responding swiftly against COVID-19 inside Cuba and is sending doctors around the world. We can and must change this reality we live in. The speakers here today will have a lot to say about how we can change this unjust system. Thank you for joining us. And with a raised fist, we say, hasta la victoria siempre, venceremos.
Hey y'all, I'm Layla. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Zach. I use he, him pronouns.
Perry, they, them pronouns. And we're organizers with the Student Marxist Assembly of South High School, which is shortened to SMASH. And we are a socialist student organization here in Minneapolis.
So what we're about at SMASH is about, spreading education about socialism and uniting the multinational student body into a united front to channel the power of the people for change.
All of us are also members of FRSO. We like how FRSO is dedicated to the fight for liberation of the working class and oppressed nationalities from imperialism and national oppression. Our comrades are active in mass movements, organizing and fighting for change.
If you're interested in socialism, or if you already know about it and want to find a good organization to fight for socialism and against national oppression and imperialism, you should join Road Socialist Organization.
One of the most important days to the socialist movement is May Day, which occurs every year on May 1st. May Day is the result, continuity, and celebration of the working class's fight for freedom. It is the history of the people, the working people. That's why it's called the International Workers' Day and is celebrated across the world.
So 1886 was a fierce time in the battle between the working class and the capitalists, where the working class, still stuck with the 12 to 14-hour days and 6-day work weeks, was fighting for an 8-hour workday, amongst other things. And so they organized a massive protest at Haymarket Square in Chicago.
After the speeches, the police entered and tried to disperse the protesters. But in their path, a bomb exploded and police opened fire in the crowd. Dozens of people were killed or wounded in what came to be known as the Haymarket Affair.
In the aftermath of this, the Chicago police led a campaign of repression against the working class, leading to the lynching of 4 men for the involvement in the organizing of that first May Day protest.
Although the Haymarket strike ended in tragedy, its fighting spirit lives on in the struggle of the working class today. That drive for justice has continued to fuel the workers' struggle, helping people win victories such as the right to unionize, the weekend, health and safety rules, unemployment insurance, welfare, and social security.
Still, however, the capitalist class and their politicians are desperate to tear these victories to shreds.
In remembrance of Haymarket, the socialist movement named May 1st International Workers' Day.
To quote Mao, the people and the people alone are the motive force in the making of world history. This is just as applicable today as when he said it in 1945. The working people of all nationalities united have won victories against the capitalist class and continue to fight today.
And in 2006, May Day saw a new resurgence in the struggle of immigrant communities against racist oppression by the US government. A bill was in the works at that time that would target and criminalize undocumented immigrants, and in response, immigrants took to the streets and fought back.
These massive protests culminated in the 2006 May Day, when many immigrants boycotted their work and school in order to demand change, showing their power as a large part of the working class. The struggle of immigrants for full equality and the workers' struggle are inseparable, as these mega protests demonstrate.
Today, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the capitalists are revealed to be parasites upon society, but the workers are essential to everything. Despite this, we continue to see attacks against working people and people of oppressed nationalities. Capitalists' refusal to provide personal protective equipment for those they term essential workers, as well as the targeting of the African American, Chicanx, Native American, and other oppressed nations in an act of state-sanctioned murder.
We also see the scapegoating of immigrant workers and Asian Americans by Trump and the rest of the capitalists, in order to blame China and others for the US's complete inadequacy response to this pandemic.
In reaction to the burden placed upon working people and people of oppressed nationalities in this pandemic, the working class fights back again.
In Arizona and Texas, the ASARCO strike, as reported by Fight Back News, is now in the 6th month of the struggle of 2,000 workers united in 8 unions against the abusive ASARCO corporation.
In Tampa, the UPS Teamsters fought and won for the better on-the-job pandemic protection.
Here in Minneapolis, the local AFSCME organized actions to end the curbside pickup program of the Hennepin County Library System, which forced workers back to the libraries into a dangerous situation, largely without pay.
In New Orleans, communities united to meet the needs of houseless people by distributing food and needed medical supplies.
The steps to socialism are clear. The returning of Marxism-Leninism to home with the workers, the building of a new party of the working class, and the building of a united front against between the multinational working class and the oppressed nationality.
As Lenin wrote in the preface to his work, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, quote, "The period of imperialism is the eve of the socialist revolution."
The fighting spirit of Haymarket lives on in the struggle of the working class. So what we say on this International Workers' Day is, workers and oppressed
people
of the world unite.
unite.
Comrades and friends, I'm so glad to be able to address you this year in honor of May Day, International Workers' Day. I hope we can meet again soon face to face, but until then, let's take this time to reaffirm our commitment to win a better world for ourselves and our children and our siblings in countries across the globe. We have together by video because we're all honoring the stay-at-home order to protect ourselves and the public health from the coronavirus pandemic. This pandemic exposes all that is wrong with capitalism in general and with U.S. capitalism in particular. At the same time, it gives the opportunity to see how socialism values and protects human life. We're also witnessing the determination and creative power of working and oppressed people to continue to fight, even under quarantine, for justice in this unjust system. Almost 4 months ago, when Trump was first warned about the dangers of a coronavirus outbreak, he dismissed it, downplayed it, and he ignored the advice of public health experts in the U.S. and internationally. As of this recording, there have been almost 50,000 deaths in the United States to COVID-19, the coronavirus disease. And this number is projected to double before the end of May. It's now the leading cause of death in the United States, and there's no end in sight. Because capitalism is organized expressly to extract profit for the few, our healthcare system didn't have any extra supplies laying around. And shockingly, because coronavirus treatment is less profitable than some of the non-emergency care that's been postponed for the crisis, hospitals have been laying off workers and cutting their hours in a time when the only reasonable policy would be to level up, not cut, cut, cut. And now here we are all these months later, and we still don't have adequate testing to see who's really got the virus. We still have major shortages in masks and other protective equipment in the healthcare facilities. We don't have enough ICU beds or ventilators to take care of those who will get the sickest. Even projections here, where we have had a pretty strong coordinated response by government and public health officials, Minnesota is projected to run out of ICU beds before this event airs on May 2nd. Meanwhile, Trump has states competing with each other and the feds to get the supplies and equipment they need. Illinois' governor went so far as to arrange secret air shipments of gloves and masks from China. And rather than address the pandemic head on, Trump blamed China for it. And in doing so, he's fueled anti-Chinese and anti-Asian racism and hate crimes. And that was one of his dangerous lies. But really, we can't have an honest talk about this pandemic if we don't talk about who is getting sick and dying. First of all, let me be clear. Anyone can catch this disease, and anyone can get sick or die. Any age, gender, nationality, or race, any condition of health. This virus does not discriminate, but U.S. capitalism definitely does. African Americans have a higher infection rate and at least double the chance of dying from COVID-19 compared to whites. Latinx people are also getting sick and dying at higher rates than white folks. And the same is true for Native Americans, including a major outbreak right now threatening the very future of the Navajo Nation. U.S. capitalism is founded on the oppression of whole nations within this country's borders, and that oppression means, among other things, long-standing health disparities and an ongoing lack of access to health care. We see this in a shocking scale in U.S. prisons, jails, and immigrant detention centers, many of which have already seen major outbreaks. A study by the ACLU reported that COVID-19 could claim the lives of approximately 100,000 more people than current projections stipulate if jail populations are not dramatically and immediately reduced. This is no surprise. Social distancing is impossible, hand sanitizers unavailable, and healthcare, including coronavirus testing, is very limited. Mass incarceration was already a stain on so-called democracy in the United States, which imprisons more of its people than any country in the world, and it locks up Indigenous, Black, and Brown folks at much higher rates than whites. So, at a certain point, Trump couldn't ignore the pandemic any longer, but it's not because he had some kind of moral awakening. No. He started to change his tune when the stock market tanked and wealthy investors didn't rally behind his science-denying public statements about the pandemic. His failure to act led the virus to spread across the country like wildfire. As of April 22nd, the U.S. had more cases than any country in the world, 4 times more. After state governors took action ordering non-essential businesses and schools closed for the public health, more than 22 million people applied for unemployment between mid-March and mid-April. And this left millions of renters not able to pay their rent and millions of homeowners missing their mortgage payments. So much of the safety net was already gone, and Trump was planning to cut 700,000 people off of SNAP food assistance on April 1st. The only reason that didn't happen is because a court ruling stopped him. Now we face the immediate reality of millions of people losing insurance in the middle of an international public health crisis because most non-elderly people in the U.S. get our health insurance from our jobs. It's a disgrace. But the government response to all of this is a massive bailout for corporations and a few crumbs for you and me. Crumbs which not everybody's eligible for, including undocumented folks and people who owe child support. Some folks are still waiting for those crumbs to show up in their mailbox or their bank accounts. Meanwhile, Trump has taken this crisis as an opening to advance some of his most reactionary policies. He's made more than a dozen changes to immigration enforcement, including an executive order signed last week for a near ban on new immigration. The administration has expanded sanctions on Iran, even accusing the country of lying about its coronavirus outbreak as an Iran sanctions relief scam, as if. Trump has also expanded sanctions on Venezuela, and he has tweeted war threats against Iran. All of this is business as usual under capitalism. It's their profit or our death, or both. They don't care as long as they have their profit. It can be easy to blame all of this on Trump, but that's not a precise way of speaking about what's going on here. Capitalism was born in the United States long before Trump was, and national oppression and white supremacy are the roots of U.S. empire and have been around much longer than Trump. And as much as it might seem that Trump is in it only for himself, his agenda serves the ruling class across the board. It's the capitalist class as a whole that shares the blame for the situation we find ourselves in today. And that's why simply participating in their elections won't get us out of this situation. On the contrary, Biden and the DNC were happy to have voters risk their lives to vote in pandemic primaries in Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Wisconsin, and other states. They don't care if we live or die. They really don't. Even Bernie Sanders would not have put political power in the hands of our class, and without that, we'll never be safe. Meanwhile, every White House briefing about the coronavirus is a Trump campaign mini ad, and Biden and most Democratic politicians are nowhere to be seen. Those that are, like New York Governor Cuomo, are already planning to balance their pandemic budgets on our backs with cuts to education, healthcare, and other austerity measures, while the rich are laughing all the way to the bank. But it doesn't have to be like this. The whole world is battling coronavirus, and nowhere is doing it more effectively than the socialist countries. Let's start with China. It's 4 times the population of the United States. They had the very first infections and no warning, no time to prepare. And even so, at this point, it has about 1/10 the total infections and 1/10 the total deaths compared to the United States. China and Vietnam both effectively have had 0 deaths per million compared to 7.63 deaths per million in the United States. In China and Vietnam, new infection rates are at or close to 0. In addition to the lengths they've gone protecting their own populations, socialist countries have demonstrated inspiring proletarian internationalism, sending supplies, equipment, and medical personnel to countries they need it, from Italy to Iran to the USA. This is possible when your society is organized around the needs of the many instead of around enriching the few. So, as we gather here online, I think you and I that we share that humanitarian spirit. And I've been inspired by some of the amazing responses I've seen from organizers in our own community and those around the country. We're going to get to hear from amazing speakers after me talking about their work, but I'm going to share some of my favorites ripped from the headlines of our favorite newspaper, Fight Back News. Car protest at Governor Walz's mansion demands immediate release of immigrants in Minnesota jails. Ask Me Local 2822 is honking to protect public health and worker safety. Minnesota nurses at M Health hospitals vote no confidence on COVID-19 response. And a commentary, right-wing protest echoes Trump demand to restart economy, endangering workers' lives. And from across the country, we've got Tampa UPS Teamsters win demands for gloves, hand sanitizer, and masks. Chicago car caravan to free Gerald Reed and prisoners facing pandemic. New Orleans community unites in solidarity with large homeless population during pandemic lockdown. And a Sarco strike of 2,000 copper workers hits 6-month mark. We need more of this, building the people's movements and the fights to win our immediate demands. Some of you might remember the People's Bailout Coalition, which formed after the last economic crisis or recession, when there was a bailout for the rich and nothing for us. Sounds kind of familiar. This is like some 10 years ago now. And we brought folks together to defend and expand the safety net. We opposed layoffs and attacks on wages, and we fought against foreclosures and evictions. Well, today we need a new coalition to advance a people's agenda in response to today's crisis. Once again, we need to make the rich pay for this crisis. So in addition to all the work we're doing and will do in the people's movements and building our fight backs, we need to build revolutionary organization that can bring a better world into being. Socialism isn't just an idea from another time or place. 1.5 billion people live in socialist countries today. One of them is 90 miles off the coast of Florida, Cuba. Their response to the coronavirus pandemic is an example to the world. These are societies that put political power into the hands of working and oppressed people. They are organized for the purpose of meeting human needs. You and I, we deserve to live in such a society, but we have to fight for it and build it. So I want to invite all of you to join us in Freedom Road Socialist Organization. We're not gathering in person right now, but it'd be a great time to get in touch, learn more about us, and discuss how you can get involved. Find us online. But in closing, today we mark the most important of communist holidays, International Workers' Day. I look forward to hearing messages from other fighters from the front lines of the people's struggle. Long live international working class solidarity.
Hi, my name is Janey Atchison, and I'm a member of St. Paul Federation of Educators. Happy May Day to all of the labor victories that we have won throughout the years in St. Paul, in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and across this country. And as we look forward to the future to build a more equitable society, a better democracy that includes labor voice in all of their decisions. This past March, my union went on strike for 4 days. We took to the street, we danced, we sang, we protested, we picketed, all because we fought for the schools that our children deserve. We fought for more mental health supports because we have students in extreme crisis. We fought for multilingual supports because knowing 2 languages or 3 languages should be seen as an asset, not a deficit. And teachers and educators who are translating in 2 languages should be paid for their time. We fought for higher wages because across this country, teachers are underpaid and often disrespected in their profession. With this coronavirus pandemic changing how we are running schools, more inequities have been thrust into the spotlight. We know for many of our students, food, housing, and safety is now at the forefront of their mind, and teachers are leading this challenge. We would like to say Happy May Day to everyone who is supporting teachers across this nation, as well as teachers in St. Paul.
Oh, resist when they try and tell you what you can and can't do. Resist when they say what you don't know. Tell them to go back to school. Resist when they try and tell you who is and ain't your neighbor. Resist when they won't pay you and exploit your labor. We want freedom and we want it now. We want freedom and we want it now.
This International Workers' Day, workers need our help more than ever, especially those that have been excluded from stimulus packages, financial assistance, unemployment assistance that the government provides. Because of this, undocumented workers are being forced to continue going to work solely to pay the bills, potentially exposing themselves to a virus that could possibly result in fatality to either them or their families. And worker exploitation is so central to capitalism that these workers are seeing higher rates of exploitation and are being overworked for longer hours because of the capitalistic demands that our country still has during a pandemic. And as for those that are still being held captive by ICE, whether that be in local county jails or the inhumane border camps, they are living in petri dishes confining several groups of people in small rooms, for them, social distancing is impossible. And it is only a matter of time before there's an actual outbreak in these areas because of how many ICE officers are testing positive for the coronavirus. And so this International Workers' Day, it's time to demand that all ICE detainees be released, whether that be in your local county jail or those that are being held in cages at the border. And it's also time to demand that undocumented workers are included in future and the next stimulus packages that the government delivers to people in order to relieve the financial burdens that this country is facing.
Workers at risk by being in the building. That's right. That's why we're calling for an immediate closing of curbside and giving workers remote work to do. We know that people need internet services. Why is the county focusing on giving a limited number of people services when the people who really need us are in desperate need of internet and technology access? That is where our resources should be going, not to putting books out on curbside. When I say close, you say curbside. Close. Curbside. Close. 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 Lives are essential. Books are not. Lives are essential. Books are not. I also want to raise the point that our workers who are being recalled are some of our veteran employees who've been here for 20 to 30 years. There's a worker at Ridgedale who might be called back who is over 70 years old. Why are we putting our most veteran, dedicated employees back on the front lines? We shouldn't have this service. We should be doing the work at home that we were doing before, which was virtual phone service. That's what we need to be doing. We should not be reopening the state. The governor said he's going to test 20,000 people a day, but that's not going to happen for another 3 weeks. Meanwhile, he keeps opening up more businesses and giving counties and other private businesses an excuse to put their workers back on the front lines and risk our lives. This is not the time to be taking risks. This is a time to be cautious, and that's why we're here. And I just want to thank everyone, library workers, supporters. We have Kathy Jones from the postal workers. They are really putting their lives on the line every day to give us an essential service. And if there's any other demands you postal workers need, Ask Me Local 2822 is here to support you, and we will come out and we will show our solidarity with you.
Thank you.
Woo! Shout out to the postal workers.
Save the post office.
Save the post office. Trump wants to use this disaster, which is turning into a human-made disaster, to cut essential services like the post office. He's using it to roll back protections for the environment. He's using it to give a big payout to the billionaires. That's what opening up the economy is about. It's not about us. It's about the people who are losing money. It's about the oil companies who are going to have to shut down production and are going to have to pay to put their oil in storage. That's what this is about. This is not about us. I also want to shout out to Brad Siegel. He's with the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee. So Brad is saying for our immigrant community, brothers, sisters, siblings, that we need relief for all people, not just people with documents.
That's right.
And that we need to release people from ICE detention. It's a death sentence, making people stay in detention centers. And we know that in the jails they're starting to release people. Why aren't they releasing people from detention centers? And that's what this is also about. It's about workers and the community standing up against bad public policy. I also think about the workers over at Cub, right? They're terrified every day they go into work. People need food, but we know Cub and other grocery stores are not doing what workers need to stay safe. They're not doing the sanitizing they need. They're giving them $2 extra an hour to do the work they're doing. That's wrong. Everyone deserves real hazard pay. They should be limiting the number of people in that building.
That's right.
In San Francisco, everyone has to line up to every grocery store before they go in. Minnesota, it's just haphazard, do whatever you want, and that's wrong. And that's why workers need to stand up, because we are the only ones who know the conditions, and we're the only ones who can stop it. That's right.
That's right.
There's power in a factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in a union. Now the lessons of the past were all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War's always been the boss's way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black leg, the workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters from many far-off lands. There is power in a union.
Happy International Workers' Day, comrades. My name is Sarah Martin, and I am a member of Women Against Military Madness and Freedom Road Socialist Organization. This past year, I was a part of a Freedom Road delegation to Venezuela. We saw firsthand the breathtaking accomplishments of the people led by their president, Nicolas Maduro, and the PSUV, or the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. For 20 years, Venezuelans have been building a country which puts the needs of the people first. Because of this, Bolivarian Revolution as it is called, and the refusal to be under the heel of U.S. domination, Venezuela is in the crosshairs of U.S. regime change. If it weren't for the pandemic, over 1 million Venezuelans, workers and unions, community groups, youth and women would be in the streets marching on May 1st. They have much to celebrate. Led by the popular President Nicolas Maduro, they have survived yet another year of sustained U.S. aggression, including failed coup attempts, and have come through it even stronger. And they celebrate and continue to build on the great gains of their Bolivarian revolution. For instance, abject poverty has been eliminated. Over 3 million affordable housing units have been built. Children attend elementary school. 13 new universities have been built. Through the CLAP program, the government delivers free food and staples to the vast majority of families every month. An extensive health system of neighborhood clinics and hospitals has been developed, so free health care is easily available to all Venezuelans. And all this and more, in spite of the economic war and sanctions imposed by the U.S. These harsh and criminal measures do make life more difficult for Venezuelans. The most deadly effect is that essential medicines for high blood pressure, dialysis, AIDS, and chemo for cancer are not available, and of course, people do die. Few people have died, on the other hand, from the coronavirus because Venezuela's aggressive and immediate handling of the pandemic has worked in slowing the spread. China has shipped medical supplies and tests. 30,000 Cuban doctors and medical personnel have gone door to door with their Venezuelan colleagues to identify people with the virus. Compare this response and the response of other socialist countries like China and Vietnam with the chaotic, confused, and inadequate actions of the U.S., the world's leading capitalist country. Outrageously, instead of focusing all resources and attention on fighting the virus, the U.S. is amping up military threats against Venezuela. The administration placed a ridiculous $15 million bounty on the head of Nicolas Maduro. Days later, Trump hijacked his own daily coronavirus TV report and announced that he was sending naval ships into the Caribbean on the bogus charge that the Venezuelans are involved in drug trafficking. This is outrageous, it's stupid, and most of all, it is incredibly dangerous. This could provoke a war, and make no mistake, the loyal and patriotic Venezuelan National Armed Forces, along with the 1 million members of the popular militias, are prepared and willing to fight, to defend, and keep their country. So on this International Workers' Day, we stand in solidarity with the heroic people of Venezuela. We support them and President Nicolas Maduro, and know we can learn from them as they continue to build toward a socialist state. U.S. hands off Venezuela, end U.S. sanctions, end U.S. war threats. Que viva Venezuela, que viva Maduro.
To me. Oh, I despise, 'cause it means destruction of this life.
Greetings. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. While we are practicing social distancing, we at TCC4J have not stopped fighting for justice. I just want to highlight what TCC4J has done to continue the fight for justice in the Twin Cities. We have been standing in solidarity with the families of those killed by the police. We have stand in solidarity with the families of Isaac Aiden, Brian Quiones, Travis Jordan, Thurman Blevins, Justin Teagan, and countless others. We have marched in the blistering heat and the bitter cold, shut down freeways, and disrupted status quo meetings. We also stand in solidarity with those in prison and in ICE detention. As this virus is spreading, we demand the immediate release of those in detention. In March, TCC4J, along with other activists around police crimes, successfully shut down Amy Klobuchar's rally in St. Louis Park, and she subsequently dropped out of the presidential race. We are continuing to pressure her and Mike Freeman to free Mayan Burrell, whom, when she was county prosecutor, put him in prison at 16 years old for a crime he did not commit. Mayan needs our continued support to help him get released from prison. We also joined the refounding of the National Alliance Against Political and Racist Repression. We, along with our siblings across the country, demand community control of the police. Just because we have to shelter in place does not mean the cops are going to stop killing us, harassing us, and brutalizing us. And this is why TCC4J will do what we can to make sure that we are still fighting for justice, and we stand in solidarity with all the working class fighters. Thank you for all you do, and we'll be back on the streets before you know it.
Okay, look, I ain't gon' make it cause I'm a minority. Caucasians getting all the seniority. We got Nazis in the Oval Office. That's why they claiming they superiority. We ain't got no options. We lower level living. True that. All my uncles and my pops know nothing but the prison, waiting for redemption, but they'll never get it. All of their dreams have been minimized. They just washing dishes. We outside the system, but we trapped in it. You don't know the feeling. I was born a victim. If I fuck up a couple times, who gon' save me? There's no one that made it out. Who gon' tell me when shit isn't going right? How to fix it? If I never do, then I'm cursing my children. We all in same ball and chain. Now it's mentally. Shit is so normal, it feels like it's meant to be. Y'all in same ball and chain. Y'all don't feel me, you're innocent kid, but was born being guilty. We all in same ball and chain. Why you hate me? Explain to me, cause it don't make any sense. Because of my color, we can't make amends. That shit ignorant, man. I guess you can call this shit the calm before the storm.
Its main ingredients can be found in your medicine cabinet, and not only is it highly addictive, it can be
Fuck Trump, by the way. Look, this is America, this shit ain't fair to us, they never care for us, no. This is America, this shit ain't fair to us, they never care for us, no.
Hey everybody, what's going on? We know what's going on. It's the pandemic. And I am a home care worker. And my life and my clients' lives are at stake. And it depends on me keeping myself healthy so that they won't have to go into a nursing home, which I'm sure that they wouldn't make it if they did. I work for 3 people. One of my people, my client, he is a man, he has 4 children. He's having anxiety now about the pandemic and if I will bring anything in there. And I know that I'm trying to be safe as I can. And we know that we're in a struggle right now, seeing what's going on with our government, shut down, unemployment issues and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm a socialist and I believe in the government taking care of. Look at the healthcare now. So if you get the virus, you can go to the hospital, you can get taken care of. Well, if it can happen with the pandemic, it can happen always and forever more. I mean, so why do we have to quit right now? And then with the issues of people working, I'm a home care worker, and $15 an hour. They used to say that we couldn't get overtime. Now they let us work all the overtime we want to. Why can't it be from the beginning? We want 15%. They want to give us, we got to get it passed through Congress and stuff. I mean, you know, the Senate and the House of Representatives about us having a 15% increase. What's that all about? We should have been done had that, you know. So it's all fun and games what the government is doing with the people right now. So I'm a home care worker. I'm trying to stay safe. I'm crossing my fingers to make sure that I do stay safe. I don't have PPE like I should have. People have donated me that, but it's about gone now. And where is my PPE? I think the government should pay for it. I think all home care workers should be able to go pick it up and have it in their cars so that we can have it when we go to the grocery store, when I pick up my people's medicine. You know, I still do that kind of stuff too for them. So I need that to stay safe and keep my clients safe. And for me, if I was to get sick, who would take care of my clients? You know, who would? I don't really think anybody would. And I have my person who told me, she's 94, she said, my bags are packed. I said, what do you mean your bags are packed? She said, with all this going on, I frankly don't care if I live or die. These are the kind of scary things that are going on with the seniors. And it shouldn't be happening. She should want to live, you know. If the President Trump had been paying attention, we could have been ahead of the game. But instead, it's a crisis on our healthcare system. And I think that this pandemic will soon be over, but we still have got to realize that this is a life and death situation, what we're in right now. And people should be taking this serious. We don't have to hoarder and all this kind of stuff. We just got to help one another, you know. I'm my brother's keeper. Yes, I am. I should see about what's going on, and we should help one another out.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a member for the Students for a Democratic Society chapter at the University of Minnesota. Our main focus this past year was the campaign to disarm the University Police Department. They are a private security force with little accountability to the population they supposedly serve, and they have been known to use inappropriate force, especially in cases dealing with mental health and in Black communities. We are demanding that the university remove the daily carry handguns from their uniform and take away their ability to use deadly force. We also believe that the UMPD funding is a poor use of campus resources, and as a part of our demand to disarm them, we are requesting that some of their funding be reallocated to mental health services on campus. Just this past year, their budget was increased to hire 3 new officers. Some actions that we have done as a part of this campaign include numerous bannering events and handing out a lot of informational flyers to raise awareness of the issue and of SDS's presence on campus. We also staged sit-ins in the office of University President Joan Gable, and we met with her to discuss our demands during her annual office hours. We collaborated on an educational event about the UMPD and police violence on college campuses with the Humphrey Students of Color Association in December. We were planning to do another big teaching event with speakers from a number of student organizations this spring, but unfortunately it was scheduled for after break, and so we have had to change our plans due to COVID-19. As of this recording, we are planning to host a Zoom event on Tuesday, April 21st, which will be a teach-in/discussion about what a student activist response to COVID-19 looks like, including what we think of our university's policy changes and what other universities are doing better and worse. We will also cover some COVID-19 issues that relate to our Disarm campaign, such as how COVID-19 is affecting prisons and ICE detention facilities. As part of our response to the inability to have events on campus right now, we have also decided to take this time to improve our social media organizing presence. We are revamping an old Twitter account and starting an Instagram page for our SDS chapter, as well as continuing to promote and share our events on Facebook and through emails. Obviously, as activists, we have been forced to change the ways that we organize due to the inability to gather in person. Since we can no longer poster or banner on campus, we are expanding our social media presence to continue outreach to students. We are finding new tactics for protests, like virtual teach-ins, car protests, call-ins and email-ins, and online petitions. We are finding better ways to bring students together, such as by shifting our focus from police violence while we have an empty campus to the financial decisions that our institution is making that will impact all of us affiliated with the university. None of this is ideal, but we are finding ways to adapt to our situation while we are all social distancing to keep our communities safe.
Taught me some strange arithmetic, using swords, prison bars, and pistol grips. English is the art of bombing towns, while assuring that you really only bless the ground. Science is the honorable, beautiful study where you contort the molecules and then you make that money. In mathematics, dead children don't get at it, but they count the cost of bullets coming out the automatic. And I'm teaching my hands up, please don't make me a bitch. Teach, stand up, you need to tell us how to flip this system. Teach, my hands up, please don't make me a victim. Teach, stand up, you need to tell us how to flip this system. God.
Arise, ye prisoners of starvation, arise, ye wretched of the earth, for justice thunders condemnation, a better world's in birth. No more tradition strange behind us, arise, ye slaves, no more enthralled. The earth shall rise on new foundations. We have been taught we shall be called. 'Tis the final conflict that each stand in place. The international working class shall free the human race. 'Tis the final conflict that each stand in place. The international working class shall free the human race. We want no condescending saviors, to rule us from their judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors, let us consult for all, to make the thief disgorge his booty, to free the spirit from its cell. We must ourselves decide our duty, we must decide and do it well. 'Tis a final conflict, let each stand in place. The international working class shall free the human race.